I had about 25% lung function then anyway, so at the time I was feeling good because that was a good day for me.
25% was a good day?
Yeah.
Wow. So what was a bad day?
A bad day was about 17%.
Far out.
So I was measuring myself.
Sorry, what do you have now?
92%.
Wow.
This time last year, Thor he thought he was in the last chapter of his life.
Yeah.
The book was about to close, and today, he hadn't ridden a push bike for just over 10 years.
Yep.
Today we're on a glorious Melbourne day going for a bike ride. Yeah. Thor, tell me what's it like to be riding your bike. So I'm at Amara Cycles Cafe, and today I'm going to introduce you to a man who's got quite an unbelievable and inspirational story to share. Before we get into this video, if you've just landed here, this is where I do cycling videos, both inspirational and entertaining, and I do love a deep dive road bike review, so if that sounds up your alley, consider subscribing below. So in this video, I'm introducing you to a man by the name of Thor Bloomfield. Now, Thor suffers from a genetic life-threatening disorder called cystic fibrosis, which essentially affects the lungs and also the digestive system. Now, the average age for somebody that lives with cystic fibrosis is around about 40, but it's constantly increasing thanks to modern medicine. Now, Thor is around 40 years of age, and this time last year, he thought he was in the final chapter of his life. The book was about to close. In fact, he could barely tie his shoelaces without being completely exhausted. And today, we're going to go for a ride together. So Thor has got quite an unbelievable story to share, which I'm going to leave it up to him to do. But just know this, he's just returned from the Transplant Games, sporting 2 gold medals, 1 for cycling. So this right here, my friends, is going to be a bloody good story. So I think I just see him. Here he comes now. Look at this. How are you, mate? Looking good.
How are you?
What's this? What's going on here? You're wearing the...
Mate, I like to keep them under wraps. Ready?
Yeah. Woo. Oh my goodness, legendary. 2 gold.
2 gold. Not 1, 2.
So 1 for cycling, what was the other one for?
This was doubles 10-pin bowling.
Yeah, okay.
And this one was the cycling 5k time trial event.
Yeah, okay.
Held at the Australian Transplant Games.
Right.
So...
How does it feel to be wearing those around your neck?
I feel like Mr. T. the white version. So hopefully in a year's time at the World Transplant Games,
yeah,
my cycling is improved.
Yeah.
And I have my chest, and there's just a massive amount of gold flowing from my chest.
Yeah, nice.
Go for Australia as well.
Nice one, mate. Well, should we go for a ride and chat about it some more?
That'd be good, Ken. Let's go.
All right, mate. Cool.
Thank you.
Today we're on a glorious Melbourne day going for a bike ride. Yeah. Thor, tell me what's it like to be riding your bike?
I did think about the answer to this question before we started, and I still am really stuck to put it into words and just express the emotion that it gives me. It almost brings me to tears to be able to ride, and to be doing this and feel breathless in a good way instead of panicking that I'm going to die is more than I can put into words. And you know, this is a beautiful day, and sometimes I actually feel like I'm in heaven, and I did die on the day, and every day since the operation has just been one beautiful day after the next. So that's as close as I can put it for you.
That's fantastic, mate. It's bloody inspirational stuff. Love it.
Thank you. sorry. I have to get the sunnies right.
So, mate, how good was it to be out there riding just now?
On a scale of 1 to 10,
Yeah.
riding on a Friday, beautiful weather, little cool breeze,
Yeah.
with a good mate, having a laugh, someone that can push me a little harder.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
It's okay, I don't mind. My legs are feeling it now, but it's been awesome.
Yeah, right. That's awesome.
And
I've enjoyed it too,
And
mate.
we're going to do it next Friday?
Yeah, bloody oath.
All right, bring it on. Well, affecting me with cystic fibrosis, there's different levels of illnesses within cystic fibrosis. So some people could be partially affected, other people can be severely affected by cystic fibrosis, and by that I mean the lungs are degenerating on a much faster rate, in which case they're going to die quicker, obviously. But on a daily basis, the mucus builds up in the lungs, so it's constantly like
Blocking the airways.
blocking your airways, and basically it chokes you from the inside, so you suffocate because your lungs are trying to produce oxygen, but instead they're producing so much mucus that you're constantly coughing it up. And in the hospital they measure how well you are or how sick you are by what the volume of a cup of sputum you cough up each day. So on a good day for me, it was about this much.
Wow.
When I was healthy, and then on a bad day I was coughing up 1 to 1.5 cups per day. And if you think that that's just sitting in your lungs every day, you're like a boat with a big hole in it. You're shoving out the water, but you're sinking faster than you can shovel.
Yeah.
And eventually the ship will sink. So you've got that, plus then you can have diabetes on top, which I had diabetes, which was extra regime work and extra monitoring, and complications with having a low blood sugar and a high blood sugar would increase the amount of illness and infection you would have. And then plus asthma on the top of that as well.
Wow. Is that common for cystic fibrosis sufferers to have other?
Yeah, and also I'm probably unique because I've got one mainstream gene, which is the cystic fibrosis airways condition.
Yeah.
But I also have one unique gene, and the unique gene hasn't been diagnosed, and they've done a secondary test to try and work out what exactly is this unique gene and how can we track it so we can also help other sufferers with mapping and therefore research and going at that particular gene and trying to expose it and see if we can fix it. But my unique condition is, or one of, from what I understand, I haven't seen any other people like me, but I don't have a digestive problem where I have to take enzymes.
Right.
So prior to the transplant, you try and put cystic fibrosis to the back of my mind and work on a daily basis so that the things that I was doing was my work and my family and a bit of my health and stuff, but I wasn't able to do what most people do, go to the gym and have a bit of a workout and come home feeling refreshed. Over the last 10 to 20 years, my health has deteriorated slowly, but then on a bell curve within the last 2 years, my health took a severe turn with influenza 2 years ago, and the following winter, which was last year, I got influenza. No, I got pneumonia. Then I went into the Alfred Hospital and was just at the point of recovering. I was down in the cafeteria and just talking away, and I'd been in there for 3 weeks already. And then I'd went back to the ward, and then a couple of hours later started feeling like I'd got a bit of a temperature and felt good that I'd just left pneumonia. And then within another 2 hours I was sitting on my bed, almost convulsing with a feverish fit, buckets of sweat pouring off me, and I was almost in a coma-ish state where I wasn't 100% aware of what was going on around me because my temperature was about 40, and
Very high.
that's pretty unable for someone who already is at a low point anyway, at 25%, to then chuck influenza A on top of them, which in the suburban hospitals, they were recording how many people had died from influenza at the same time as I'd got it here. So my doctor put the call through. It was a Saturday night.
Yep.
He was at home. He picked up the phone, Dr. John Wilson, who's been my doctor for the last 20 years at the Alfred Hospital,
Yeah.
and spoke to the physio, Brenda Button, she'd been my head physio for probably about 30 years, I'd say. Followed me over from the kids' hospital, and I think it was due to them that I didn't end up in ICU in a coma-ish state, and basically knocked out because I was unable to hold myself together. And they nurtured me through with the nurses who brought all the emergency equipment to my bed, and with the heart bumpers and the special emergency team where all the nurses get their met call and they have to come from other wards to come down and help someone who's in an emergency state. That was me. I just remember a lot of nurses around my bed all talking to me at once, and it was like watching everything out of focus. And that's sort of what knocked me to the point of the getting back up onto the 5th floor where the respiratory ward is. And the first time I'd really seen the transplant doctors and the team came around.
So you needed to go to that sort of level to be able to go to a transplant level, almost on the verge of dying.
Yeah, so
wow.
there's like too early and too late, and then there's a window.
Right.
And my transplant doctor, Glenn, said just before that, the weekend doctors came around and they were nice and relaxed and very happy, and they obviously love what they do, and said, Thor, look, if you don't get better tomorrow, we'll look at putting you on ECMO. And I didn't know what ECMO was. It just sounded like a cool word. I think like a steroid, a drug, something really cool. Yeah, just have a party.
Yeah.
I was thinking, okay, ECMO sounds good. But when I started to find out about it, I thought, I think I'd rather stay and fight than go on ECMO, because what ECMO means is we'll take you down to intensive care, and when you're in intensive care, you don't go there for happy reasons, or it's not a social visit.
No.
This is the ward you go to before you die.
Wow.
Or before you live. So there's only two choices and two ways you come out. You're either going to come out on top of the world, or you're going to come out in a black box. And I saw both while I was down there. So ECMO is where they take the blood from the left side of the leg and pump it around a dialysis or oxygen machine, oxygenate your blood and stick it back in the other side of your leg, and then circulate through your body. At the same time, you're 100% knocked out, so you're just sitting there sleeping, and whilst you're sleeping, you're waiting for someone to come up as a donor with a set of lungs. And it's one of those times in life where your brain is just going into a state of like euphoria, and you're not too sure what you're supposed to think or what you're supposed to feel, because there's no guidebook for how you're supposed to react or think when someone's about to tell you that you've only got two choices left in life, and they're going to happen so quickly that you're not able to make any plans or decisions. It's more like,
How do you control?
yeah, it's like, well, when you say goodbye to your wife and go to work, it's like you've got that short of amount of time to say goodbye to your daughter, your wife, your best mate, your pet if you've got one, and and that's the amount of time I sort of had left in life to be able to wind up and package my whole 40 years on the planet to that little section to say this is all I have left. And you know, even if I do regret anything, it's still too late. So I was really in the stressful, anxious, scared part of my life. The doctors were very, very confident that I was going to come out, and not only come out, was going to come out like a bull, just fighting and full of energy. And they said, you know, Thor, you know, the biggest risk for you is, you know, falling off the bed before you get there. Right. But in terms of us doing a successful transplant with you, we have no hesitation that this is going to be one of our most successful transplants.
Wow.
And they look at all these different numbers. It's amazing what they actually go through, and it's hard to explain to anyone that hasn't done it. And gosh, if I had have recorded, it would have been pages long. But the numbers that they saw, they said your window starts here, and if you'd like to go on the list now, this is the optimal time for you. But we need you to make the decision, because you can still maintain yourself and live a normal life, or the life that you're currently leading, and get better. But there's a risk that if you get an infection, it may throw you back even further than you are now. Or you can have your operation now, yep, and we will see you healthy and fit quite quickly. And the risk is that you may not come out of the operation, or you may come out with more complications than you went in with, or the organs just don't talk to each other, or maybe it's a year later that the organs decide that the body is winning the fight against the new set of lungs that I got. So I actually got 2 sets of lungs, and then you're back on the table looking for another set of lungs as well. Wow. So I'll just show you, but this is the set of lungs that I got. So a scar from all the way around there to here, 2 drainage holes for the lungs to drain the fluid from. Yeah. And then on this side, again, just under there, so they open the rib cage like that. Wow. To about there, and I'm bent backwards over a table with my arms over my head for about 9 hours. And then, so in that position, then recovering and coming back, you're quite sore, and your body's muscular is sore as well, and having your rib cage split open like that and then squash it back together, still, and I think probably for most of my life I'll be on nerve pain medication. Wow. What happened with the false starts was the doctors put you on the transplant waiting list. Yeah. And then they have to wait for someone to be ready to donate their organs, which is a precision match for me. And I'd been on the transplant waiting list for about 3 weeks. Yeah, okay. And then the call came through to say we've got some lungs for Thor. And that happened early in the morning, and my wife and I went ballistic, and we started calling people and telling them it's on. Wow. And you know, he's going to get new lungs, he's going to have his operation. And we turned up to the hospital, and we sat on the bed, and they said, we'll just do some blood tests to get started. And one of the nurses from the transplant unit came back and forth every half an hour. And in the first instance, she said, look, we're not too sure if it's going to go ahead. And then we thought, oh, you know, it's only a bit of a hit, she said, but it still could be on. And next, she came back about 45 minutes later. And what they have to do is wait for the person, they give them like an hour's grace.
Right.
And within that hour, if you get too close to the hour, she said that the lungs are perished too much to be able to be put into my body and healthfully connect to my tissue. So they said, look, we're really sorry, but it's not going to go ahead today. So I left like we'd gone to Luna Park and we were that deflated that it was closed on the day we turned up.
Wow.
I went in the second time and I was there for 6 hours this time. Got the build up, really thought it was going ahead. They'd made me shave. I thought, right, you know, if they shave my chest, it's got to be on for sure. You know, you don't ask a man to shave if you're not going to do the operation. So I'd done the workup, spent 6 hours. My best mate was there, and my wife and daughter, and my parents were there for a bit, and it didn't go ahead, and left a bit more like, you know, I'm used to this now. I had my first knockback. This is my second knockback, so you know, I'm pretty confident I can handle a third knockback. And there was a phone call, and 11 o'clock at night, and Em said, "Oh, it's all right. I'll get the phone." I thought, "Oh, good. Who would call this hour of night after a beautiful day?"
Yeah.
And I thought, I hope this is not your parents or my parents wanting to, you know, they'd forgotten something.
Yeah.
They want a cup of sugar.
Yeah.
And the hospital had called and Em spoke to them and said that the set of lungs had come in, and we're fairly certain that this is definitely going to go ahead. We'd like Thor to come in at 1 o'clock. And I said to him, no, put the phone down, I'm going back to bed, wake me up at 1:45. So she started packing my bag and got excited and, you know, called a few people and organised for my daughter to be put somewhere, and then said, okay, we're going in. And I thought, oh God, here we go again, you know, they've woken me from a beautiful sleep. If this doesn't go ahead, I'm gonna put an invoice in for my sleep.
Yeah.
So we went into hospital, and the only two people standing in the room that night with me was my wife and my best friend Glenn, who'd had a transplant 10 years before me. Mm. And it was the calmest feeling, thinking this could potentially kill me, or this could potentially send me back to my family and I can spend quality time with them. And
ride bikes.
And ride awesome bikes.
Yeah.
Not only a bike, but the best bike.
Yeah, exactly right.
The Ferrari of bikes.
Yeah.
And I just kind of recalled it, things that I've done and bucket listed very quickly. Just recent experiences, like on my 40th birthday, I went to Bora Bora, and for me it was one of the last things that I wanted to do before having a transplant and going to the point where I was unable to travel overseas. And also at a bucket list, because at the age of 40 was considered the life expectancy with someone with cystic fibrosis. So I thought, what can I do that would be a long-lasting memory for myself and for my wife and daughter? And I thought about having a big party in Melbourne, inviting all of my friends and just crashing it and you know, laying 10 grand on the table. But I thought, what's that going to give me? I'm going to get drunk. Yeah. I'm going to pass out. Yeah. I won't remember a thing. Yeah. So I thought maybe I'll do something that I might remember better. Yeah. And going to watch the sunrise over the beautiful ocean in the Pacific Islands was something that I valued more. And then that was my experience. So
you took those memories as you were going into the operating theatre for the third and final call.
Yep, no more bids.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome.
The only other person was the nurse, sort of off in the background, very quiet and silently waiting, who came over and said, is there, you know, would you like to see a priest, or is there any kind of religion that you would like to attend prior to going in? And I said no, and she said that's okay. So we got a photo of myself and my wife and my friend Glenn together, and then we said goodbye, and I said I'll see you in a couple of hours. And as I was being wheeled into the theatre, there was a dark room going into a light room, which I thought this could be going to heaven. I went into that waiting room on the bed and just raised my fist in the air and just thought, I don't care what happens, I'm going in as strong as I can into this fight for the next 9 hours, and my body's going to be fighting for me.
9-hour operation.
Yeah. And I had the operation, and I'd apparently come up to the intensive care unit, and I think my wife and mother were quite happy that I was back on the ward, and the nurse said that I was losing a lot of blood and they will have to take me back down to theatre. And I thought, he's just come up, why does he need to go back down? This is not right. So I went back down to theatre, and it turns out that as they were operating on me, they'd accidentally sliced my diaphragm, which was leaking blood.
Oh my goodness.
So they had to go back in, open me up again,
wow,
and then find where they'd sliced me. Yep, stitch it back up, then stitch up the big part, and then get back out and put me back up on the ward.
Just the cherry on top of the whole experience. Wow.
It's like forgetting to put the muffler back on, and you're going back in the garage and
Wow.
attaching bits. So I remember waking up, and the day doctor started at 7 o'clock in the morning and takes over. So the day doctor had the full responsibility, and the night doctor is really there just to carry through until the day, and if anything happens, liaise and say that there's an issue, what should we do? But prior to the 7 o'clock, they said I was talking or trying to communicate, and trying to communicate with this stuck down my throat was a bit hard, so they couldn't hear exactly what I was saying.
Yeah.
So they gave me a little board and a whiteboard marker, and I was like, oh. And I said, we know you're trying to say something, but we can't, so write it down and show us.
Yeah.
And I wrote down very clearly, take this out.
Right.
And the doctor who was on night, who wasn't really supposed to be able to do that because it's not his responsibility, he said, Thor, I was so confident in you because you wrote so clearly that I thought if I take it out, you will be able to breathe by yourself. And he did take it out half an hour before the other shift started, and I took a deep breath, which was the first deep breath I'd taken, which was not a small breath. I could breathe in and hold, and I'm still holding, and I'm still holding, and then I could let it out, and it was the most freakiest moment to feel that you're breathing through someone else's body parts, and knowing that someone else had passed away, and as someone else was being mourned and put in the box or cremated, etc., I was embracing life and getting excited about living and walking and bike riding and jet skiing and mountain climbing and skydiving and snowboarding. I was looking forward to all these things, but the other person was not.
Do you know who that other person is?
Under the Privacy Act,
Okay.
you're not allowed to know who the other person is unless I write a letter to the hospital or the organisation to deal with transplants. They vet the letter, send it on,
Right.
and if the other party would like to communicate back, then they can vet and sort of
Understand.
make sure. But I think what I would like to do is spend a bit more time with my my new lungs.
Yeah.
And just do a little more experiences, and just feel that I've got something to write back to them about why I'm so humbly thankful for these gifts that you've given me. So I'm still maintaining myself now on two fronts, the transplant front plus the cystic fibrosis and the diabetes front.
Yes.
With a little bit of asthma thrown in, sprinkled on top.
It's pretty exciting, right?
Yeah, coming back from the games and the euphoric state of finishing a 5-kilometre bike race in the morning in a hot sun in Queensland, in Nerang, which was a mountainous circuit course up and down a major hill. And then following that, within 40 minutes, I had to run off to Specialised in Nerang to get the bike fixed, to then come back and compete in the 30k bike race straight afterwards. Was just absolutely tearing my body apart, but I felt so good afterwards. What that confidence has given me to think of the future and what I could possibly do has really confirmed that after doing the Australian Transplant Games and subsequently finding out at the gala that I'd won a gold medal in the 5-kilometre time trial, has solidified me to go to the World Games, the World Transplant Games, and compete for Australia.
That's awesome.
In those games. I'd be beyond proud. I'd be something that I'd seen on TV and think I am really standing in the World Games competing for Australia, and just the buzz and the excitement of having myself there and my daughter and my wife and all the other competitors around me, that we're all on an equal playing field, that we've all suffered a severe illness. We're all maintaining ourselves daily, on a daily basis, with multiple drugs, and we're all going through pain. We're all going through either, could be dialysis with kidney transplants, but you just don't know what people are suffering. And the people I was there with, all of them who had a transplant, no one had ever stopped to complain during the games about the suffering and the pain or problems that they've been going through. Was just happy to be out there and to be around people that would just go, I do dialysis every night for the last 10 years. And you think, well, okay, if you come home from work and you've had a bad day, spare a thought for someone else who's just been doing the hard yards, and then during the day that they then go to work and have kids and a family to work with as well. I had a moment inside me that just snapped after I had my transplant, and I'd never felt like I was really in a moment or really able to give back in life to the people that had helped me through life and supported me. But after having a transplant, it was like something had snapped inside me, and all I'd wanted to do was to be vocal about my illness, which I'd never really wanted to tell anyone before.
Wow.
So it's like I couldn't stop talking to strangers about having a transplant. I thought, I just can't help myself. And I wanted to help other people because I'd had such a good experience with the staff at the Alfred Hospital. I really felt like what they'd given me and what they actually were able to give me with the equipment and the staff there I was so grateful that I thought they need more staff, they need better equipment, and they need to be able to cater for the hundreds of transplant recipients that they're creating because they're having so much success with transplants that I just wanted to help in some way.
So Thor, thanks for sharing your story. It's a ripper, unbelievable. Mate, you got your bike here, you got your Lycra. What's going on? Where are you going now?
To the World Games, Cam. Where else? World Transplant Games, that is.
Yeah, right. Should we go for another ride? I think we should go for another ride together. Such a cracking day. You're halfway there. I'll catch you in the next video.